She helped a stranger cross the street at midnight. But what happened next haunted her forever. The wind howled like a wounded animal on that deserted street corner. It was the kind of still night that clung to your skin, making you feel like you were being watched. Clara didn't think much of it at first, she just wanted to get home. The streetlights flickered overhead, their glow casting eerie shadows that danced in dark corners, hinting at secrets hidden just beyond sight. Then, out of nowhere, she spotted a man standing at the crosswalk, glancing nervously from side to side, as if he were waiting for someone. His eyes widened when he caught sight of Clara. There was a wildness in them, a mix of fear and urgency. As she approached, she could feel the tension rising, a static charge in the air thick enough to taste. She sensed this was no ordinary man, but a troubling enigma wrapped in an almost desperate plea for help. "Can you help me cross?" he asked, his voice trembling as if every word were a fragile thread ready to snap. Something about his voice struck a chord deep inside her, making her heart race. A feeling washed over Clara that she couldn't shake, a strange blend of compassion and dread. She nodded slowly, feeling the cool metal of the street sign dig into her palm as she instinctively reached for it, her mind screaming warnings she couldn't quite grasp. They moved toward the crosswalk together, and time seemed to stretch, every second filled with that suffocating tension. As they stepped into the street, a car screeched around the corner. The headlights spilled over them, blinding. Clara froze. The world narrowed, everything falling away except for that chilling moment, just her and the stranger. Her heart thudded loudly in her ears. But then, as if in a slow-motion nightmare, she watched the stranger's face twist in horror, mouth opening in a silent scream. She pulled him back, feeling the momentum swing like a pendulum, yet somehow he slipped from her grip, stumbling forward into danger. Before Clara could process what had just happened, the sharp sound of metal crumpling echoed in the air. The car lurched to a stop, tires screeching, an impression of violent chaos, lingering in the night's eerie silence. Clara didn't want to look, but her eyes unwillingly drifted to where he had stood. The street was empty now, just her, the dim flickering lights, and shadows creeping back to reclaim the dark. What had she done? The mix of dread and guilt tightened around her heart. She turned, her breath hitching, a lump formed in her throat as she whispered a prayer into the chilling night. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. What if this stranger was more than he seemed? Her thoughts spiraled, a whirlpool of dread and uncertainty settling into her bones. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As a shiver ran down her spine, Clara turned back to the crossing. What had happened to that man? The echo of his terrified face replayed in her mind, tugging at her sanity. She couldn't just leave. Taking hesitant steps back to the crosswalk, adrenaline coursed through her veins. Daylight would soon arrive, but the shadows from this night would cling to her much longer. She felt the weight of something dark rising from the street, a thick fog of mystery rolling in to envelop her. What lay hidden in those shadows? And as she looked closer, the reality of her decision hit her harder than any weight ever could. What if helping him meant she had just crossed a line into a world from which there was no return? The night air hung thick with an oppressive silence, and Clara's breaths echoed in her ears, each one a reminder of the weight pressing down on her chest. She glanced around, half expecting the stranger to appear again from the shadows, his face marred by panic. She felt a shudder grip her body, and small prickles of fear danced across her skin like the chill from a grave. Where had he gone? The uncertainty gnawed at her as she stood rooted to the spot, her heart racing with an urge to flee, yet her conscience anchored her to the crossroads. Did he disappear into the very darkness that had swallowed him whole? Or was he lying injured somewhere, desperately needing her help? Clara's mind swirled with images of his terrified face, a look that seemed to burn into her memory, igniting a painful sense of responsibility. She stepped back into the street, eyes scanning the gloom for any sign of life, but the world remained stubbornly still. In that moment, she felt small, as if swallowed up by the very night she'd once thought was harmless. Suddenly, a distant siren wailed, piercing the silence, making her jump. Panic bubbled up inside her. What if someone had seen? What if the stranger hadn't just needed help across the street but was running from something far worse? As the echoes of the siren grew closer, a sickening thought settled in her gut. What if she had unknowingly dragged herself into a perilous situation, a nightmare from which there was no waking? Clara couldn't shake the feeling someone was watching her. She turned, half expecting to confront haunting eyes, only to find the street remains eerily empty. Clenching her fists, she willed herself to move, to run, but her feet were chained to the pavement like a haunting memory. It was then that she noticed something glinting in the dim light, a shard of glass, perhaps from the wrecked car. She hesitated, a surge of caution forcing her instincts to scream. What if the glass held clues? Would it tell her what had really happened? With shaky hands, she knelt to examine it, the cold glass catching the dim light and reflecting it back in a silent plea for recognition. Just as curiosity flickered through her mind, the sound of footsteps echoed behind her, a rhythmic pounding that sent her heart into a frantic race. "Clara!" A voice called out, booming in the night. It was her friend, Emily, who had been searching for her. "What happened? We were worried." Relief washed over Clara, but it was quickly eclipsed by guilt as she turned to face her. How would she explain? They hadn't just crossed a street, they had crossed into something dark and unknown. "I saw a man. I tried to help him." Before she could finish her thought, the night broke again, another sound, clearer this time, sending chills through her again. It came from the alley. A soft whimper, almost human but different somehow, as if something unnatural had slipped into her world. The serendipitous moment vanished like vapor, replaced by an icy claw of dread wrapping around her insides. "Did you hear that?" Clara whispered, her voice trembling. She shared a glance with Emily, who nodded but looked equally terrified. "It's just a cat, right?" Emily suggested weakly, but Clara could see her instincts were kicking in, both women teetering on the edge of fear and curiosity. "No." Clara shook her head, heart pounding as she stepped cautiously toward the alley's entrance. It sounded like him. And as she took that tentative step toward the shadowy opening, Clara could feel the undeniable truth looming ahead. What had she unleashed into the night? A sudden rush of air swirled around them, filling her with both dread and a desperate need for answers. Clara hesitated, the dark space before her calling out, a whisper laced with danger. With a deep breath, Clara leaned toward the darkness, ready to confront fate or whatever terrible secret awaited her there. The night was still young, but she could feel the hourglass spilling its contents, and she had a choice to make. Should she dive deep into the shadows, risking everything? What awaited her there, just beyond her grasp in that alley of whispers? Clara's heart thundered in her chest as she peered into the dark alley. Shadows danced in the flickering light from the street lamps, twisting and turning like phantoms. The whimpering persisted, a soft, pitiful sound that tugged at her very core, pulling her forward even as her instinct screamed to retreat. "Clara, wait." Emily grabbed her arm, but Clara gently shrugged her off. The chill of uncertainty surrounded them, but the strangely melodic cries pulled her in, as if inviting her to uncover a mystery woven in the very fabric of the night. Cautiously, Clara stepped across the threshold, feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon her. The air turned dense, thick with a tension that both terrified and intrigued her. "We need to know what's going on," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. Echoes of doubt reverberated inside her, but she couldn't ignore her instinct to delve deeper. Emily hesitated at the entrance, shadowed by fear. "I don't like this, Clara." It feels wrong. Ignoring Emily's caution, Clara stepped further into the gloom. A few steps in, the ground crunched beneath her feet. Broken bits of glass and debris told their own story, though its meaning eluded her. The whimper grew louder now, rising like waves crashing under the siren's echoes. "Keep your voice down," Clara urged, but her plea evaporated into the darkness, overshadowed by the lurking dread. She moved slowly, eyes straining to separate shadow from solid shape. As they progressed, the alley opened slightly, revealing a small figure curled against the wall, a man, huddled and trembling. His clothes were torn, stained with dirt and something darker, catching the faint light like an ominous warning. Clara's breath caught in her throat. "Hello?" she ventured, each syllable heavy with trepidation. "Are you okay?" His head shot up, eyes wide with unbridled fear and a glimmer of hope. "Help please," he gasped, voice hoarse and ragged. Clara took a cautious step forward, drawn in closer. The moment felt charged, electric, every ounce of her being screamed to flee, yet something deeper beckoned her closer. "What happened to you?" she asked, urgency fueling her voice. "Run," he rasped, shaking his head. "You don't understand, he's coming back for me." Emily finally stepped into the alley, her face a mix of determination and fright. "We need to call for no." He interrupted, panic breaking through the thin veil of control. "You can't bring anyone here." "Not yet." Clara felt desperation seep in. This man was living a nightmare, one she could barely comprehend, but a part of her ached to reach out. "We can help you," she said, every word steeped in sincerity. "Just tell us who's after you." He looked between the two of them, eyes turning wild. "There's no time. You don't know what's in the dark." His voice cracked, fear painting his features with urgency. Clara's heart raced. A wave of uncertainty crashed over her, but she noticed the trembling hand he held out, palms up in a silent plea. Just as she moved closer, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed behind them, heavy, deliberate, almost predatory. Emily gasped, her panic filling the air. "No. We can't go yet." Clara insisted, her voice barely a whisper as she locked eyes with the stranger. The echoing footsteps grew louder, a sinister rhythm that matched Clara's pounding heart. Something was coming, something that hungered for the very fear that coursed through her veins. Then, in one breathless instant, she thought she saw a shimmer of movement behind the shadows, a grotesque figure lurking just beyond reach. "Please," the man pleaded, voice trembling, "you need to hide. It's too late for me, but you can still escape." A weight descended on Clara's heart, forcing her into a grip of raw reality. What had she stumbled into? What lurked in the dark, waiting just behind the veil of shadows? As the footsteps drew closer, the choice lay heavy before her. Would she stand and fight for this man's truth? Or would she flee into the night, dragging Emily with her, running away from the dangers that awaited? A chilling whisper surrounded them, sending icy fingers up their spines. "You shouldn't have come here." The man's expression turned to one of pure terror as Clara felt the darkness pulse closer, a storm on the horizon ready to unleash its fury. With a final glance back at Emily, Clara's decision crystallized in her mind. "We're not leaving you," she shouted, pulling the man closer. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. And then the darkness surged forward, swallowing them whole. What had they truly awakened in that alley, and would any of them survive the night? The darkness tightened around them, a living thing that seemed to breathe and pulse like a wounded beast. Clara could feel its cold tendrils reaching out, threatening to claw at their sanity. Her heart raced as she held the trembling man tightly, a tenuous lifeline in an unfathomable abyss. We can't leave him," Clara shouted, her voice echoing against the damp brick walls. She pulled the stranger nearer, the urgency of his situation igniting a fire in her veins. Emily's eyes darted around, scanning the shadows for any sign of danger. "Clara, please. We're outnumbered. We don't know what that thing is." No. Clara insisted. She could barely hear herself over the pounding in her ears, fueled by adrenaline and fear. We're going to help him. We can't just abandon him to whatever is coming. A low growl reverberated through the alley, vibrating up from the depths of the darkness, taunting them. The man's face blanched, and Clara felt his body tense, rigid against her grasp. He always finds me, he murmured, voice cracking with sheer terror. No matter where I run, he's there. Clara's breath hitched in her throat. Who? Who is coming? But before he could answer, the figure she'd glimpsed before slithered forward into view, a distortion of shadow and malice. Its slim form undulated like smoke but was punctuated by sharp, glinting eyes that reflected the moonlight with a predatory gleam. Come out, it hissed, voice dripping with venom. I've been waiting, for so long. Clara felt terror seize her. There was something entirely wrong about its tone, something that twisted her stomach into knots. The predator moved with an unholy grace, gliding closer, drawing upon their fear like a moth to a flame. Stay behind me, she urged, positioning herself between the figure and the man. Emily clutched her arm tightly, her nails biting into Clara's skin. The man staggered back, shaking his head furiously. It's too late. You don't know what you're dealing with. The creature laughed, a cold sound that cut through the air like glass. You think you can protect him? Its eyes bore straight into Clara's, unflinching, as if they could see into the depths of her soul. You're already part of the game. Suddenly, a cacophony of sound burst in the darkness. Trash cans toppled as if knocked over by invisible forces, and the very bricks underfoot seemed to writhe with suppressed energy. Clara felt the ground shake, and the shadows danced furiously around them. Run! Emily screamed, pulling Clara's arm. But Clara stood firm, heart racing faster than ever. She wouldn't turn her back on this man, not now. No! We can't leave him. Clara's voice slipped into a wild desperation, the primal instinct to protect overturning her common sense. She glanced at him, his terrified eyes pleading for something she wasn't sure she could give. The creature took a step closer, its grin growing wider, revealing teeth that shone too bright in the sliver of moonlight. The night is upon us, it crooned, circling them like a vulture. And what's lost can never be found again. With a sudden burst of courage, Clara shouted, We will not let you take him. She grabbed the man by the arm, pulling him upright. They faced the enemy together now, this man from the shadows and two women unwilling to accept the darkness around them. But before they could make a move, the creature lunged, a blur of darkness aimed straight at Clara. The world seemed to move in slow motion, and the paralyzing fear gripped her chest as her mind raced. Did they truly understand what they were fighting against? Did they even stand a chance? Time froze, and in her breathless moment of clarity, Clara thought she saw a flicker of silver glint in the man's pocket. As the creature's shadow fell over them, would an act of courage define their fate, or would their resolve extinguish with the darkness? A deafening silence wrapped around them, just before the world ripped apart into chaos. Would they escape the clutches of their nightmares, or find themselves forever entangled in the web of horrors that awaited? The creature lunged, its darkness flowing like liquid fear, and Clara instinctively stepped forward, bracing herself for the inevitable collision. Behind her, Emily's hand slipped away, and Clara's heart dropped as she felt the loss of that safety tether. Just as the creature surged, the man gasped, clutching his pocket tight, the silver glint flashing again under the moonlight. Now! He shouted, pulling a knife out with lightning speed. Unlike any blade Clara had ever seen, it shimmered, drawing in light rather than reflecting it. The creature hesitated, uncertainty flickering across its monstrous face, and in that moment, Clara seized her chance. With a yell, Clara charged forward, adrenaline propelling her. Get back, she cried, lunging toward the creature. There was a moment of hesitation, and then it smiled, a sinister curve that sent ice racing down Clara's spine. The shadowy figure sidestepped her attack, its movements slick and evasive. Clara barely recovered from her missed attempt when the creature clawed towards her, fingers sharp and glimmering like daggers. The man, fueled by desperation, lunged alongside Clara. "Stay close," he barked. They needed to work together, to confuse it. Just as the creature swiped at Clara, she dove to the side, executing the move in a panic that felt both instinctual and precise. The man followed her lead, slashing at the creature with the knife. To their shock, the blade connected with the entity's dark form, emitting a screech that reverberated through the alley. The sound shattered the night like shattering glass, and Clara's ears rang. A part of the darkness evaporated, curling away in wisps, revealing hints of a figure, gaunt and humanoid, trapped within. "No!" Clara cried. "What are you?" The creature's piercing eyes filled with rage, focusing on the man. "You have no idea what you've unleashed. He should never have revealed himself. The only one who is trapped here is you," the man shouted back. "We're not playing along with your twisted game." Clara's breath caught in her throat. She realized the man's fear was rooted in something far deeper than just survival. There was a history between them, a connection she felt she was only beginning to grasp, but their efforts were temporary. The creature reformed, slick and ghost-like, swirling back into a lethal mass. It thrust its hand forward, and shadows erupted, swirling around Clara and the man, pulling them in. She felt the coldness seep into her very bones, clawing at her mind. "Clara!" Emily's voice pierced through the chaos, desperate and choked. Flashes of the alley lights illuminated her figure, still standing firm and wild-eyed, terrified but unyielding. "We have to go. We can't fight this thing." "No!" Clara shouted, her instincts flaring with rebellion. "We're not leaving anyone behind." Just as her words echoed in the tension-laden air, a burst of light exploded from the knife. It flared up, searing through the shadow creature, illuminating the darkness like fireworks in a murky sky. The creature hissed, recoiling, the sentient shadow ripping apart as if caught in a storm. "Now! Clara, now!" The man yelled, eyes blazing with urgency. Together, they sprinted, but Clara couldn't shake the sense that the creature was still coming, that it would stop at nothing to reclaim what it believed was rightfully its. As they sprinted deeper into the alley, the shadows ripped apart like the last vestiges of night, leaving behind an impression of something darker, an echo of the creature's laughter that sent shivers down Clara's spine. Breathless and terrified, they burst into a clearing, where the moonlight bathed them in pale illumination. But there was no comfort in the light. Clara turned to the man, urgency gripping her. "We can't let it follow us. What do we do?" But as she searched his eyes for answers, she saw something unfurling, an expression of dread that seemed to shake him to the core. "It's not over, not yet," he whispered hoarsely before collapsing to his knees. Clara's stomach sank, dread pooling within her as the shadows shifted behind them again. One way or another, they would need to confront their haunting pasts or risk being devoured by the very fears they sought to escape. What horror lay ahead? And could they defeat it, or were they already marked by the shadows lurking beyond? Clara's heart raced as the man fell, his face contorted with pain. Shadows writhed around them, and the air thickened with dread. "Get up!" she yelled, desperation flooding her voice. The creature was regrouping. She could feel it, like a predator circling its prey. "Clara," he gasped, his voice barely a whisper. "You don't understand, it won't just come for us. It takes everything." "What do you mean everything?" Panic twisted Clara's insides, knotting her stomach. She felt an overwhelming need to protect him, to fight for both of them, but uncertainty gnawed at her. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught movement. The shadows began to coalesce again, forming a shape, a silhouette just out of reach under the moon's dim light. A low, rumbling growl echoed around them, sending shivers down her spine. Clara steeled herself, willing both of them to escape. "Use the knife," she urged, throwing it into her voice, like kindling to a fire. Fight it. But the man, his eyes gleaming with fear, shook his head. It's not the knife, it's the bond. He struggled to push himself up, breathing heavy. We need to fight without. The creature lurched forward, rising above them in a wave of black fury. It lashed out, and this time Clara stumbled back, instinctively covering her face. The shadows wrapped around her fingers, cold and biting, as she struggled against their grip. Clara! The man surged forward, barely managing to throw himself toward her. With surprising strength, he grabbed her arm, dragging her back just as the shadows lunged. The darkness dissolved, but it surged again without hesitation, seething with a hunger that was palpable. Listen to me, he shouted, gripping her shoulders tightly. If we don't confront the fear it represents, it will consume us. We have to show it we're not afraid. Clara's breath caught. She could feel the creature lurking in the recesses of her mind, her own fears, regrets, and failures beneath its monstrous visage. This thing wasn't merely a beast, it was a reminder of everything that haunted her. I can't. She protested, her voice trembling. I'm not strong enough. You are. He forced her to meet his gaze, his determination igniting something within her. We're stronger together. We have to confront our fears as one. The creature twisted violently, its figure distorting as it lashed out with renewed fury. The shadows that had threatened to engulf them now split into several dark tendrils, each clawing at the night. Clara felt the weight of it all pressing down, but she stood her ground. Then let us do this. She shouted, steeling herself with every ounce of conviction. The instant was charged with intensity. Clara could feel the energy crackling between them, a bond uniting them against the darkness. As if sensing their resolve, the creature hesitated. An unnatural silence settled, heavy and dense, like the calm before a storm. Clara felt their fears manifest: doubt, guilt, failure, all forming images in her mind. Faces of lost friends, shadows of bad decisions, echoed 1,000 regrets, but Clara let them surface, letting the truth of her vulnerabilities wash over her. She clenched her fists, feeling a surge of power ignite in her chest. I see you. I see the darkness. To her surprise, the creature recoiled. The shadows quivered, unsure as she continued, her voice trembling with newfound strength. You don't own me. You don't get to control my fear. The man beside her mirrored her declaration, his voice strong and unwavering. We will not be ruled by you. You're nothing but a reflection of our past. With each word they uttered, the darkness flickered, grasping at its stability, but it was fighting a losing battle. The shadows began to fracture, splintering like broken glass, as light penetrated through the cracks. The moon, once a distant observer, shone brightly, casting their fears away. As the darkness dissipated, the creature let out a howl, a sound of anguish that twisted through the night. It lunged one last time, only for a brilliant burst of light to erupt from the fragments of their courage. Clara watched, breathless as the creature shattered into 1,000 pieces, swept away by the wind. But just as relief washed over her, she felt a sudden shift. Something was left behind, an echo of the nightmare, pulling at her soul, whispering promises of revenge. Clara, the man's voice was strained with urgency again. It's not finished. And in that moment, she realized their battle was far from over. What awaited them beyond the veil of light, and would they survive the remnants of their own darkness? Clara's heart pounded fiercely, an echo of the struggle that had just unfolded. The air felt charged, crackling with a tension that refused to dissipate. Even in the luminous aftermath, shadows lingered, whispering remnants of fear that echoed in every corner of her mind. Is it gone? She breathed, looking at the man beside her. His face was pale, eyes wide with the remnants of horror, flickering with a fire that hadn't extinguished. It's not gone, it's changed, he murmured, voice trembling. He stood slowly, as if physics wasn't quite sure what to do with him anymore. The ground beneath their feet felt unstable, as if it, too, was uncertain of the new balance forged in the battle. Clara turned her gaze away from him, scanning the fractured night. The shadows were thickening again, coiling together like serpents, slinking back across the expanse of the ground. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper against the brooding backdrop of darkness. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "We need to embrace the light. The confidence we discovered, it weakened the creature, but it knows us now. It will return, and it will come harder." Panic flared in her chest, and her vision narrowed. "What if we're not ready?" "Then we prepare," he declared, determination carving deep lines on his face. "We have to face our fears together, hold on to that bond we now share, whatever it takes." Clara nodded, though her stomach twisted tightly. She felt buoyed by their shared victory, but darkness still clung to the corners of her mind, taunting her with images she desperately wished to forget. Friends lost, choices that felt irrevocable, the weight of every wrong turn. Before she could allow those thoughts to take hold, the man moved, searching the ground for something. "What are you looking for?" "The knife." He glanced at her, urgency etched in his features. "We need a tangible weapon, something we can latch onto, something that connects us." Clara mentally kicked herself she had tossed the knife in her frantic attempt to fight off the creature. "Over there." She pointed into the starlit distance. "I saw it land by that tree." They darted toward the shadowy figure of the tree looming ahead. The brush crackled underfoot as they moved, both gripping the remnants of their courage in the air between them. Clara felt the shadows follow, whispering secrets meant to instill dread. When they reached the tree, Clara bent low, urgently searching the ground. "Please, please be here," she chanted under her breath. The thought of facing the shadow creature again without a weapon filled her with terror. Suddenly, a chill swept through the air, freezing her in place. The wind stilled, and the darkness thickened, manifesting fear like a living entity. Clara looked up sharply, her breath hitching in her throat. A shape emerged from the dark, a twisted figure cloaked in shadow. It streaked towards them with impossible speed, its form shifting and writhing. "Clara! Run!" The man shouted, his voice cutting through the growing silence. But she was rooted, trapped between fight and flight. Something deep within her stirred, a knot of courage wrapped tightly around her heart. She yanked her gaze away from the creature and focused on him. Together. In unison, they took a step back, the bond between them pulsating like a living light. The landscape glowed with intensity as they braced for impact, hearts in synchrony, but then, just as the creature lunged, a blinding flash lit the forest, and Clara's mind snapped back again to their shared past, the memories that formed them, the hope tucked away like a secret. The strength came flooding back as they shouted their fears, "We see you. You can't control us." Just as they gathered their resolve, something shifted again, and Clara felt a wrongness in the air. She could see the edges of the creature trembling, but just behind it loomed another shadow, thicker and darker than the last. "What the?" she gasped, realizing with horror that the echoes of their struggle were birthing new nightmares. "What have we done?" the man whispered. Fear gripping his voice, and Clara understood then this was only the beginning. Their battle had awakened something far worse, a consequence they had never considered. "What's waiting for us now?" she murmured, dread pooling like lead in her veins. The shadows converged, and they stood on the brink of utter chaos. What if the true nightmare hadn't even begun? The air felt heavier, almost suffocating, as the shadows thickened into grotesque shapes. Clara and the man, adrenaline coursing through their veins, braced themselves against an approaching nightmare. The twisted figure pulsed dark energy, a bulging threat inching closer. Clara's heart seemed to synchronize with the creature's sinister rhythm, a frantic thrum that echoed her worst fears. "Stay close!" he shouted, his eyes darting around desperately, searching for an escape. "We need to move." Clara's mind raced. Escape? Where could they go? The woods were an endless expanse of oppressive darkness. The trees towered above them, sharp silhouettes blocking their way like sentinels of despair. She gripped the ground, anchoring herself, trying to push away the storm of panic swirling inside. As the creature lunged, Clara yanked forward, grabbing the man's arm. "Together. We deal with this together." In response, he nodded, determination flickering in his frightened eyes. They surged toward the still light space beyond the forest, their shared courage morphing into a tangible shield, a warmth that melted through the encroaching chill. But the shadows were relentless, snapping at their heels with every step. Clara could hear whispers curling around like serpents, taunting them, "You will never escape. You've awakened us. Don't listen. Focus." The man urged, his voice cutting through the dread, snapping Clara back to reality. The knife. Where was it? She cursed under her breath. The very thing that could bring them hope, a symbol of their bond, was lost in the chaos, and time slipped away faster than she could grasp it. Suddenly, she spotted a glint among the fallen leaves. The knife. She dashed to the spot, sinking to her knees, fingers scraping through the cold earth. Just as her hand wrapped around the familiar hilt, a bone-chilling howl pierced the air. She looked up in horror. The creature was upon them, and behind it, the darker figure swirled like an ink stain, eager to consume everything in its path. Adrenaline surged, her heart pounding against her ribcage like the frantic beat of war drums. "Clara!" he yelled, and she snapped back to the task at hand. She couldn't let fear dictate their fate. Wrapping her fingers around the knife, she felt an electric jolt, remnants of hope and companionship. "Ready?" she asked, the weight of panic still pressing down. "Always," he gritted through clenched teeth, his resolve crystallizing into something fierce and bright, and they charged forward. Just as Clara swung the knife, an unexpected surge of light erupted from their joined hands, a luminous beacon that lit up the woods momentarily, illuminating every detail of the twisted shadows around them. The creatures recoiled, hissing, recoiling from the light they had summoned together. "It works!" Clara shouted, exhilaration sweeping her. Was it possible? Could they truly stand against this dark tide? But as she took in their surroundings, an overwhelming dread washed over her again. The shadows pulsed back violently, as if retreating to regroup. Clara felt the air thicken. The creatures were morphing, shifting into something even worse. She barely had time to catch her breath when she heard the whisper again, stronger now, sharper like a blade slicing through the night. "Fools! You sealed your fate." Clara exchanged a desperate glance with the man. "What does it mean?" she gasped, words barely escaping her trembling lips, and in the back of her mind, she realized something horrifying. This was only the tip of the iceberg. Their unity had sparked something formidable, but it had also awakened an ancient rage, a force duskier than the night itself. "Get ready," he warned, eyes wide with dawning terror, but behind them, branches shattered, and from the shadows poured a mass of writhing forms, a tide of darkness, infinitely relentless. Clara felt her strength waver. They were no longer just fighting one creature, they were facing an army. "What do we do now?" she yelled, panic slipping through her grip. As the darkness surged forward, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket, she sensed a single heartbeat, the sound pulsating beneath the chaos. It wasn't just the heartbeat of fear, it was a call to action. A question loomed large in the night, and she felt its weight settle in her bones. Will we fight or perish? As the darkness descended, Clara's spirit ignited. This battle wasn't just for their lives, it was for the light, for the hope buried deep in their hearts. What they faced now was only the beginning. But could they gather enough strength for what was to come? Time distorted around Clara, each second feeling like an eternity as the shadows closed in. The sound of throbbing hearts, hers and the countless dark creatures, reverberated through the clearing, blending into a chaotic symphony of impending doom. The knife burned against her palm, a comforting weight that reminded her of the bond she shared with the man. "Let us push through," he shouted, his voice cutting through the storm of despair. With a synchronized determination, they charged toward the mass swirling at the edge of the light. But as their feet hit the ground itself seemed to shift beneath them, pulling them down into a boiling abyss of terror. The air crackled with tension, and an unfamiliar power danced on Clara's skin. The night erupted in anguished screams as the creatures advanced, shadowy tendrils reaching for them like monstrous hands. Clara swung the knife, the glowing blade carving against the darkness, scattering a swarm of twisted forms. Light, briefly, illuminated the path ahead, revealing a way through the oncoming horde. "We can't stop," she yelled, pushing herself harder, forcing her legs to move even as despair clung to her like a shroud. They were running toward a boundary, a shimmering light in the distance, flickering like a mirage. She caught glimpses of hope reflected in the man's eyes, and it filled her with renewed vigor. "Almost there," he urged, desperation bending his tone, but the shadows grew, multiplying in their wake. Then, it happened. Above the cacophony, a raucous laughter erupted, echoing through the woods, cruel and mocking. Clara's pulse quickened, fear embedding deep in her bones. It was no mere beast that they faced, it was something intelligent, something that loomed with malevolence. "You think you can conquer the dark?" The voice taunted, vibrating through her like a cold wind. Shadows shifted, coiling tighter, determining to snuff out whatever flicker of light dared defy them. "Just ignore it," she shouted desperately, fighting against the creeping panic that threatened to unravel her focus. They pressed on, racing toward the light that seemed to grow ever dimmer with each passing moment. Every footfall felt like a heartbeat, a countdown to a darkness she couldn't comprehend. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through her ankle. Clara stumbled, the knife slipping from her grasp and landing just out of reach. She instinctively reached for it, but a tangle of shadowy vines ensnared her leg, pulling her down into its suffocating grasp. "Clara!" he cried, rushing back despite the shadows snapping at his heels. "Stay with me." His hand grasped her, but before they could break free, something inky and foreboding emerged from the depths of the swirling darkness. It was a twisted visage, a mockery of a face, features distorted, all mouth and eyes blazing with hunger. "Your fear feeds us," it growled, voice dripping with malice. "Stay, don't leave." "No!" Clara screamed, wresting free from the vine's grip as she saw him falter, eyes wide with terror. In that moment, something snapped inside her. With a surge of desperation, she lunged for the knife, feeling its familiar warmth as her fingers curved around the hilt. "Clara, don't!" he shouted, but the voice of doubt was drowned out by a surge of defiance crashing over her. She stood tall, the knife glowing brighter than before, illuminating their surroundings with an ethereal light. With each ounce of fear replaced by fierce resolve, she pointed the blade at the wretched creature. If they were to survive this, they needed to confront the darkness head-on. "Back, beast!" she roared, strength flooding through her every word, igniting the air with power. The creature hesitated, caught off guard. But it wasn't enough. A dark wave surged forward, eager to swallow them whole. They faced the oncoming tide, hearts thundering as the shadows pressed closer, determined to claim victory, but Clara didn't waver. "Together!" she shouted, and the man steadied himself beside her, breathing in the hope sparking in the light they had built together. The shadows recoiled at their combined force, but would it be enough to drive the darkness back? As the battle raged, Clara felt that heartbeat again, stronger now, pulsating in rhythm with the knife. A question swelled within her, the very nature of strength was about to reveal itself to them both if only they could withstand what was to come. Would the light they summoned hold against the monstrous surge? Or would they be swallowed whole by the night? In the fray of shadows, Clara and the man held their ground, fear and courage melding into a fierce resolve. The darkness crashed against their shield of light, eager to consume. Clara's heart raced, her thoughts spiraling. This was the moment. "Together!" Clara shouted, her voice cutting through the thickening dread. With a nod, he lunged forward alongside her, their spirits intertwining, forming a steady light that radiated through the chaos. The darkness writhed, hissed, and recoiled, momentarily stunned by the brilliance they conjured. But the pressure mounted, as if the shadows were heralding reinforcements. Clara could see shapes merging, twisting together, creating a monstrous becoming that was more than the sum of its parts. "Hold on!" she yelled, gripping the knife tightly. The warmth radiating from it matched the pulse of determination coursing through her veins. It was a lifeline, a weapon forged from the strength they had found in one another. As the shadows lunged, Clara could feel despair threatening to wrap around her like a vice. Her breath hitched. She couldn't let that happen. "No matter what, we refuse to be afraid." With a battle cry that echoed into the night, they thrust the blade forward, summoning the power of their shared bond. Light burst forth from the knife, breaking through the darkness like the dawn bursting through a long night. "Keep pushing," the man urged, determination flaring in his voice. With every ounce of their beings, they charged forward, the knife carving through the writhing mass of shadows. And with every cut, they glimpsed more than mere darkness, they saw reflections of their own fears and pain, memories woven in the fabric of the night. Clara pressed on, her voice rising above the din, "You have no power over us." The creature before them hesitated, the chaotic mass faltering under the weight of their resilience. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were reclaiming their lives, wrenching back their stolen light. A final scream betrayed the darkness, a sound filled with rage and despair. The shadows shattered, scattering into fine mist that evaporated into the air. Clara felt the pulse of fear escape her, replaced by the warmth of victory. She and the man stumbled back, breathless. The night itself had quieted, as if the world were finally exhaling. But a lingering question crept back, a gentle whisper of uncertainty. "Is it really over?" He looked at her, eyes fierce yet wary. "For now." That resonated deep inside Clara. They knew this wouldn't be the end, but they had conquered a fear that could have consumed them whole. "Whatever happens next, we face it together," she asserted, the light from the knife still burning bright with their unity. As dawn broke over the horizon, the golden light washed over them, filling every crack left by the shadows. Clara felt hope unfurl in her chest like a flower blooming in spring. She reached out, squeezing his hand tightly, a gesture of silent understanding and compassion. In the distance, she saw familiar shapes growing, clearer figures from their past, weaving back into the fabric of their lives. The fears that once crowded their minds began to disperse, making way for the relationships they had fought to protect. The man turned to Clara, a soft smile breaking through the haze of fear. "You saved me," he said, gratitude coloring his voice. "No," she replied, shaking her head. "We saved each other. We couldn't have done this without our bond." As the sun rose fully, washing away the remnants of night and filling the air with its warmth, Clara took a deep breath. She knew then that they would carry the scars of their battle, reminders of their strength and resilience. The world ahead held uncertainty but also possibility. With their shared courage lighting the way, they stepped forward together, embracing the new dawn that led them back from the abyss. And so, as the sunrise bathed them in warmth, Clara whispered a quiet promise: "No matter how deep the darkness goes, we will always find our way back to the light." Now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show us you want more content like this. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What do you think will happen next? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your participation makes all the difference.